Today I'm going to show you how to achieve this absolutely beautiful icy look using the new Huda Beauty Icy Nudes eyeshadow palette. I haven't seen a look like this yet, so keep on watching. Hey guys, welcome back to my channel. If you are new to my channel, my name is Shona Scott and I'm a professional makeup artist, and I specialise in trying to help women feel confident with makeup in the easiest way possible. So if that sounds like something you might be interested in, then consider hitting the subscribe button. So recently I received the Huda Beauty Icy Nude palette, which has been everywhere on social media. Apparently it's going to be Huda's last palette. I don't know how true that is. I don't know why it would be her last palette, but anyway, I did a poll here on YouTube and Instagram asking if you guys wanted to see a full glam look or an everyday look. Instagram, everybody wanted to see full glam, whereas here on YouTube, people wanted to see everyday. So I think I will probably do two looks using this palette. If you haven't seen it yet, this is the palette. As you can see, very reminiscent of Huda's style. She has a mix of creamy mattes, shimmers. We've got some glitter, we've got some frosted finishes. I think today I'm going to do a bit more of a glamorous look. It won't be full glam that's not wearable, but it'll be something that's probably a little bit less everyday. I think I'm going to start with my eye makeup. I haven't done that in a long while. I always tend to just do my base and then zoom in, but a lot of these glittery products tend to fall down, so I don't want that to fall onto my base. I already have some tinted SPF on, very light, so I will come back and do my base makeup after. Let's neutralise our eyelids using a concealer. My choice today is the Bioderma Hyaluronic Serum Concealer. I love that this isn't too heavy, but it gives coverage just enough to neutralise the eyelids because we haven't applied any foundation yet. Pop some of that on the centre of the eyelid and then use a brush to work this over the lid. I'm using a synthetic brush because this works best when using cream or liquid based products. Then use your finger to press that over the skin. Now we're ready to move on to eyeshadow. I'm going to take this creamy matte shade called Oneself, and on my BK Beauty 201 fluffy blending brush, I'm going to buff this in over the socket of the eye. This is going to be our transitional shade, which means this colour will be the one that we take the highest towards the eyebrow bone. So using a very small amount, tapping off any excess product, buff this in circular motions through the socket, which is where the eye naturally creases. Then we're taking the shade Poised, which is a slightly deeper grey, and again using that same brush, we're now taking this shade on the outer third of the mobile lid, which is the part that moves. This is going on the outer third in circular motions. Then we will use what's left on the bristles to start buffing this out into the socket area, concentrating the majority of this on that outer third and then using just whatever's left through the socket towards the inner corner, but that will be a very light amount. You can then start to build on this intensity to whatever works for your face and your skin tone. And if you are slightly deeper than I am, you can use a darker shade in that palette. Adjust this to suit your skin tone. The key here is to work in light layers so that you don't overwhelm your eye, because it will be harder to remove these if you go too dark. Moving on to my Rephr number 13 brush, this is a small crease brush and this works beautifully underneath the eyes because it's so small, and I'm mixing together the two shades that we've already applied underneath those lower eyelashes and connecting that with the outer corner of the top lid. I'm now moving on to the lightest matte shade in the palette, which is almost like a white, but it has a slightly grey undertone to it. This is called Avalanche, and I'm taking my ZOEVA 240 Petite pencil brush to apply this to the very inner corner of the eye as a matte highlight. I'm also taking that along the tear duct area to meet up with the grey that we've already applied underneath our lower eyelashes. Don't forget to also pull this slightly onto the top lid. We want everything to look really seamless, so make sure that whenever you apply a colour, it always meets up with the colour that you've already applied, if that makes sense. I'm using mostly what's left in the bristles to apply this to the brow bone as a very subtle highlight. Next I'm taking one of the two trio chromes, which is called Iced Out, and this is probably one of my favourite colours in the palette altogether. The only way to apply these is with your finger. Do not try to apply these with a brush because it just will not give you a very good payoff. These are like flakes and they kind of meld with the warmth of your skin, so you need to use your finger to apply it and you'll get the best payoff. I honestly didn't know what this colour would turn out like until I swatched it on my finger, and I realised it had this really beautiful kind of iridescent blue, which I think is so pretty. However, I had intentionally set out to create more of a grey look, and then it turned into more of a blue finish. I still love the result, it just was a little bit unexpected. I did swatch Bling and I felt like it didn't really give much payoff even with the fingers. And although Platinum gave a better finish, it was just kind of real solid silver and I didn't want to do a solid silver finish. So I opted to use the other trio chrome called Diamond Dew, which is this one here. And it pairs nicely with Iced Out, which is the first shade that we used. Again, this really does need to be applied with your fingers to really melt it into the skin, because otherwise you'll see that you get a ton of fall down. The idea is to really just press it onto the skin and without lifting your finger up, work it in circular motions until it blends onto the skin and heats up, and then you'll find that you get less fall down. If you just try to pat it on continually, you really will get so much fall down. So push it on and then just keep your finger attached to the skin at the same time as blending. I'm now going to totally and utterly throw you off here. I'm going to use a black kohl pencil. This one is by Eldridge. As you can see, it's super soft and super pigmented. There is nothing quite like it out there. On initial application, you're going to feel like this is too stark compared to the colours that we've got on the lid, but trust the process and work with me. Apply it to your upper and lower waterline, then pop some on the back of your hand to work from using a brush. The one I'm using is by Anastasia Beverly Hills. It's the number 3 brush. It's a synthetic bristled brush that's tightly packed together and is pointy but also flat. So it's great for working along the lash line and also works beautifully to create a winged liner, which I will show you shortly. We are working on top of a shimmer, so the result will be a soft smoke that is shimmery at the root of the eyelashes. So make sure you work it all the way along from the inner corner to the outer corner, creating a soft smoke. The way to do this is just keep buffing over it until it becomes very, very soft. Only use a very light amount of the eyeliner and you don't need to apply more, just keep working over it until it becomes soft, that way it won't become too dark. As you can see here, I've used the tip of the brush to pull the colour outwards to create a wing, and then I filled that in using the belly of the brush. I've switched up to a slightly rounder brush, again that's very small, and worked that into a little bit of that eyeliner from the back of my hand, and I'm buffing that over the eyeshadow that we've applied underneath our lower eyelashes just to deepen that. Then I'm switching back to my Anastasia Beverly Hills pointed brush, dipping that into the Iced Out eyeshadow, which is the one that gives that slightly blue finish. And I'm using this eyeshadow to trace over the black eyeliner that we've applied. It's creating more depth because the black is underneath, but this is also taking away a little bit of that darkness from the black, so it pairs a bit better with the eyeshadow. It's not too stark. As you can see, I'm also taking a little bit of that Iced Out shadow across the tear duct area. As I'm using my favourite mascara, which is the LANCôME Lash Idôle, I decided I didn't want any of the pigment that's in my eyelashes to ruin my mascara. So I leant over my bin and using my finger, I did a window wiper motion, just touching the lashes and not the eyelid, so I didn't ruin my eyeshadow, just to remove any of that pigment. Then I was safe to go in with my mascara. So now I'm going to apply some individual Dovetail eyelashes all the way across the eyelashes, just for a fluttery finish. The reason I've chosen these eyelashes is because they're more spiky, you can see through them. It gives a more feminine appearance to the eyes, but it doesn't disguise the eyeshadow work like a strip lash would. And I'm creating quite a winged out look, so I'm using longer lashes on the outer half and then getting slightly smaller as we come towards the inner corner of the eye. And that completes the eye section of this makeup. So I am back, I've done my eye makeup. I'm going to move on to the face and just clean up underneath my eyes, because as you will have seen up close, there's so much fall down from these products. These eyeshadows are super pigmented, which is fantastic, but they will completely ruin any base that you have. So that's why it's ideal to always do your eyes first when you're working with products with such pigment. So I've just used a little bit of micellar water on a cotton pad to get rid of all those little bits of pigment that have fallen down. It's been a few hours since I did my skincare, and as I said, I had a tiny bit of tinted SPF on. So as I'm using retinols, my skin is a little bit on the drier side. I'm still oily through my T-section, but my skin overall is a little bit dry on the surface. So I'm going to go in with this KOSAS Plump and Juicy Vegan Serum Spray. This will help to add a little bit of hydration back to my base. I'm not worried about my eye makeup. It's very, very light. It's also not fragranced, so it's not particularly pleasant. It doesn't have the nicest sort of smell. It smells a little bit like, not like rapeseed oil, but something along those lines, which I'm not a fan of, but it is a very nice sort of way to hydrate the skin. As I'm not keeping this makeup on, I'm not going to go in with a primer of sorts, but I wanted to show you a couple of options if you are. If you're slightly more on the oily side, or you find that your foundation kind of just doesn't stay put all day, you can use something like the Milk Makeup Hydro Grip Primer. They also have a glowy version of this now. I personally am not a fan of it. I just feel like unless you're kind of in your very early 20s and teens, it's not something that everybody can get away with, because anything with those kind of light reflecting particles just tends to enhance fine lines and wrinkles. So this is the original, which I can recommend. Another great one, slightly more expensive, great if you are oily combination. This is the Bobbi Brown Vitamin Enriched Face Base. A really lovely product, but it is fragrance, so if you're somebody who suffers with sensitive skin, this might not always be a great option. If, like me, you've got a little bit of redness here, this is just because my skin is a little bit sensitized at the moment, just because I'm using retinols. But on the whole, if you suffer with redness on a regular basis, such as rosacea, then this Smashbox Photo Finish Correct Anti-Redness Primer is a great one. It has a slight green tinge to it, which really does help to counteract the redness in the skin. As you can see, it has this kind of green effect to it. If you look at the colour wheel, green is opposite to red, so if we put green on top of red, it will help to neutralise it. So although it won't completely counteract the red, the idea is that it neutralises it so that when you put foundation or concealer on top, it won't look like a funny colour underneath, it will neutralise it. So you're not looking to eradicate redness with green, we're looking to neutralise redness. So I'm going to pop a little bit of that just here. And then if you have drier skin, something like the Tatcha Silk Canvas Primer, which is a great one. I do have it, I can't find it, must be in my kit over in the corner. That one is a great one if you have dry skin and you want to prime underneath your foundation. For foundation today, I'm going to use the Makeup Forever HD Skin Foundation. I adore this foundation. If you followed me for a while, you know I'm a huge fan of it. This is great for kind of all skin types. If you're particularly dry, they do a glow version of this, and I like it because it's not super reflective, it's just extra hydrating and it has a very subtle dewiness to it. This one's more like a natural to demi-matte finish, so not too drying if you're oily, but at the same time not too drying if you're dry, if you really aren't a fan of glowy products. This one is a great all-rounder. This was the original one that came out, and then I think the glow one came out maybe like a year ago. I don't know if you can see, but it's not a runny product. It is very creamy, and I would say it's like a good medium coverage that's buildable to full. I used this on my wedding day. I loved it. I think it's such a fantastic foundation. So I'm just going to pop it on with my fingers first. I feel like it's such a lovely product. I don't want it to kind of just absorb into my sponge. And I do prefer to use a sponge when I have slightly drier skin from my skincare, so that I'm not kind of using a brush to swipe over the skin, which effectively just lifts up any dry skin. By bouncing over it, you're not disturbing the base. Now this isn't going to be the best colour match for me. Now we're coming out of the summer and coming into winter. I'm going into a different skin tone. I like to use these little pigments to change the colour of my foundation to make it perfect, but I know not everybody has access to that. So say there was a colour that worked really well for you in the summer, and then as the winter comes in it no longer works for you. You can use these colours to adjust the foundation. Just one drop really does transform it. It means you don't have to waste your foundation or buy two different colours. But for the purposes of the fact that not everybody has that, I sometimes just show you that even if the colour's slightly off, we can make it work. By the time we've applied our bronzer and blush, it tends to really come together. This one is a little bit on the yellow side for me at the moment. So I'm going to go under my eyes with some concealer. This one is by Terry. It's the Hyaluronic Serum Concealer. I like this one, especially if you are slightly drier. This one is great because it's very hydrating. I don't always go directly underneath the eyes with concealer, but this isn't too heavy. It kind of melds into the skin beautifully. It doesn't enhance those fine lines and wrinkles, and especially if you just kind of bounce it in. I love this sponge. It's so spongy and soft. I love it. And it comes with a small one as well. Private collection. Look at the difference! Oh my god, it's so tiny and squishy, which would be perfect under the eyes, but I haven't gone and used it yet and it's not damp, so I'm not going to reach for it. I'm just going to use the very precisely cut tip, which allows me to get underneath the eyes and bounce that in. As we do have a cooler tone to the face, I'm going to contour. I will add a little bit of bronzer, but I want to keep it slightly cooler, so I'm going to go in with my Kevyn Aucoin. This is the Sculpting powder. Mine looks absolutely knackered and they last forever. This one is in medium. The brush I'm using is the Sigma E35. You can take a little bit of that down the nose, and you'll see that it doesn't bring warmth to the face. Instead it sculpts it, but it's still cool. And this just helps to shape the face, but without bringing any orange tones. They do this in light as well, and then a deep colour as well. Now don't worry if you go too heavy. You want it heavy enough that it's visible, but not where it looks like you've contoured. Instead it needs to look like a shadow. So take your sponge and just bounce over it, because we've not popped any powder onto the skin. So you can work this back over, and this will soften any harshness to your contouring. It will still be there, but it'll be softer. I'm going to take this Morphe E4 brush, and I'm going to take a little bit more of the Kevyn Aucoin, tap off any excess product, blow on it if it's your own brush, but if you're working on someone else, don't blow on it, and just pop this in the hollows of the cheeks. Swipe your lips to the side to create this hollow, and then you'll see where it needs to, you'll like, see your natural shadow? Just follow that. You can either pat very lightly, which I am a fan of. You can swipe, but if you've got any tackiness from your foundation, bear in mind, if you've not set your skin, this is kind of like a self-setting foundation, but if you've got one that's quite tacky, then bear in mind that if you don't put a powder on first, like a translucent powder, and you go straight in with especially a contouring product as opposed to bronzer, it will stick to any tackiness. So swiping isn't always your best friend. Stippling works much better. But very, very lightly. Don't sort of stamp your face. And I'm kind of keeping it in line with the outside of the iris. You can do the outer corner of the eye, but that's still quite far over. But the outside of the iris, you can bring down. And then I usually pop a little bit here from the eyes into the temple. If you're slightly more mature, this area tends to sink a little bit as we get older. So we tend to want to put something that's more of a highlight to bring that out a little bit rather than sinking it. So depending on your age and the sort of shape of your face, depends on whether that's necessary for you. Another product that I love that is on the slightly cooler side when it comes to bronzer, this is not new to you if you followed me for years, it's the Bare Minerals Faux Tan Endless Summer Bronzer. This one is completely and utterly well loved. We've hit the pan there. I love that this is less orange, so I'm going to use the same Morphe brush, and this time we're just going to go a little bit around the hairline. Nothing too intense. We just want this to just slightly sculpt the face, but we don't want to use the Kevyn Aucoin one because I feel like that's too much of a shadow. I'm not really trying to make my forehead look smaller. I'm just adding a little bit of warmth, but on the cooler end of the spectrum. Does that make sense? Take it down your neck. For blush, we're going to keep it on the pinkier side because we've gone with a cool tone. This is the Frostbite Icy Nude that came out with the palette. I'm going to use my BK Beauty 106 flat top foundation brush, or like rounded foundation brush. If you want to try the BK brushes, you can use the code Shona10 and that'll get you 10% off. So let's give this a little swipe. I haven't tried this on my face, I've only tried it on my hand and it looked really nice. So let's see if we're going to need to, whoa, put anything else on underneath it. I don't think so. I'm going to keep it high up on the cheek. I love a kind of glossy vibe, especially when there's no light reflecting particles in it, because it just means you don't have to put highlighter on. It makes this area look hydrated. It has this ability to almost deflect the appearance of fine lines and wrinkles when it reflects light without light reflecting particles. The light reflecting particles that are slightly frosted really enhance fine lines, but when there's no light reflecting particles and it's just a kind of natural glow, almost like wet, it just seems to diminish the appearance of the fine lines. That's why I love the Nude Sticks Nudies Bloom. So pop that on. Can you see how the kind of pink works with the blue as opposed to something that was too orange? Orange and blue are complementary. They do work well, but I think the pink is slightly on the cooler spectrum, and I feel like that kind of works well with these tones. I can just take a little bit up here. I'm going to take the LANCôME Lip Idôle Lip Shaper in 53, the Tea is Hot. I find foundation tends to hide the lip line a little bit, so I'm just popping it back in. I'm not overdrawing my lips because I really dislike my lips lined. So popping it on and softening it with my finger. You can see it just brings back a little bit of shape. The other one I really like is called 21 Shade Throw-In Beige, and it's kind of more peachy beige, and that's the one I tend to use the most if I line my lips. I'm going to go in with this LH Cosmetics Plush Dreamy. These are new. They're so lovely. I've been carrying around in my bag actually. It's got a little fluffy kind of applicator there that you just squeeze. And this one is a pinky tone, which I like. They're very comfortable. Like a coloured balm. I think it'll work well. Just going to use this to blend in that liner a little bit with the balm. What I really like about the LH Cosmetics brand is that they're clean, they're vegan, they're cruelty free. I don't get any fragrance from this. I do love a lip product that has fragrance in it, but I know that's not for everybody. So if you're looking for like clean, really beautiful products that are made by a makeup artist, then check out LH Cosmetics, and everything I've used will be listed and linked in the description bar. I'm going to take my Rephr AA01 and a little bit of my Charlotte Tilbury Airbrush Flawless Powder just here through the centre to minimise a little bit of shine, and through the centre of the T-zone. And that completes my kind of glamorous makeup tutorial using the Huda Beauty Icy Nudes palette. So let me know what you thought in the comment section below. I'd really love to know your thoughts. I know kind of these bluey tones, which is kind of how it's come out, are not going to be for everybody. If you would like to see this palette again with a more everyday wearable look, let me know. We can use mostly the matte shades and maybe just a hint of sparkle. Let me know and I will try and do that for you as well. Thank you for bearing with me over the last month. As you know, I've been going through a bereavement and it's just taken me some time to get my head around everything. Last week I uploaded a tutorial that I filmed in September, but I'm back now and I'm going to do my best to try and be a little bit more regular again. Thank you for all your words of support the last month. It's been really lovely to read. It's nice to know that you guys are still there waiting, ready for when I came back. As always, if you have suggestions for tutorials, let me know in the comment section below. We're coming up to the festive season now, so if you've got requests, pop them in the comment section and I will do my best to create them for you. Don't forget, you can shop the entire look down in the description bar of the video. Subscribe if you're new to my channel. Thank you all for watching and I'll see you in my next video. Bye guys.